Morning, sir. Our travel time to Shanghai is 11 hours, 15 minutes.
Told you we should have taken the faster flight.
I think the board prefers you wear a more conventional suit to these company meetings.
You can't outrun your past.
Friday, tell me I didn't just imagine that.
Negative, sir. Sir, incoming!
A little late, don't you think? Friday, suit up, now!
All systems online.
Time for the hero thing.
Sir, hostiles inbound, 10 o'clock.
So much for a hero's welcome.
On your right.
Any idea who we're up against?
You've made your share of enemies, sir. I'll need more time. Above you.
That's how it's done.
Threat neutralized.
Good. I have a plane to catch.
PlayStation.
What is up, New York Comic Con? Yes! Welcome to Marvel's Iron Man VR Behind the Script. I am Josh Soleil. We're going to get into this game and talk about all the juicy good stories, gameplay, and all of that. So to join me on this stage is Ryan Payton, creative director of Camouflage, and Bill Roseman, VP and creative director of Marvel Games. Oh, look at that flight. Look at that flight. Oh, stabilize, and punch down. That was nice. Oh, cool. Gentlemen, hello. Long time no see.
That's right.
Greetings, Josh. How are you?
Last day, you holding up okay?
Yeah, doing my best. Too much yelling.
I like that T-shirt. On brand.
I mean, I like your guys' T-shirt.
Hey, twins. We're twins.
See, these are pretty cool, right?
Woo!
Ah.
All right, so let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
For those of these fans who don't know Marvel's Iron Man VR, what is Marvel's Iron Man VR?
All right, well, Marvel's Iron Man VR is all about taking the awesome things about playing as Iron Man. The flying and the shooting and the rocket punching, the ground pounding, and that three-dimensional HUD, right? And also being Tony Stark, and then smashing those together with the great things about VR and PlayStation VR, which is those move controllers, so you can do all the flying and the shooting and the ground pounding and rocket punching, and then also with the VR headset, you're in that three-dimensional HUD. And finally, with VR, there's a sense of immersion in VR, right? So being Tony Stark, not just playing as Tony Stark, but being Tony Stark and looking down and seeing your body and seeing your hands and hearing your voice as Tony is really all about what the game is all about. So it's just not the action and the Iron Man simulation. It's also about Tony and that full AAA level VR content in a full campaign as well.
Yeah, I mean, simply put, I like to think about it is it's the ultimate wish fulfillment that lets you do what you pretended when we were all 8 and 9 years old, and maybe today, is putting you inside the armor. When you put on the PlayStation VR headset, it is just like putting on Tony Stark's helmet. And yes, and in addition to that, you get to be Tony Stark. You get to be that millionaire inventor playboy. You get to walk around the mansion. You get to go to all these international hot spots. But there's something special about you put on that helmet, and it's the first time you've ever really got to experience having that light-up HUD. You've seen it on screen. You've seen it in the comics. But when you put it on and it wraps around your face, and you get to fly and blast as Iron Man, you really believe, because you are Iron Man.
I got to play this game at San Diego, and I got chills when in the beginning when you see all the logos coming up and you're going along the water and you're gliding down.
Exactly.
The feeling you get, you encapsulated it perfectly. But from the beginning, did you just wake up one morning and your team was like, Iron Man, VR, done, we got it?
Right.
Like, how did you come up with that decision?
Yeah, so the way that the game all came about is that through Bill's boss, Jay Young, over at Marvel Games, he met me at E3 and he said, hey, we're interested in Camouflage working on a VR game. And in the Marvel Universe, and we said, we're interested. And we came back to the team, and they said, well, but if it could be Iron Man, what could be more perfect for VR than Iron Man as a character, right? So we went back to Jay, and Jay said, hey, thanks but no thanks. Iron Man is our crown jewel for VR, basically. And you guys are good, but you're not to that level that I want you to be at. I'm like, okay, challenge accepted. What would we need to do in order to convince you of that? And he said, well, you're not going to get it, but a great pitch, and then also an amazing, the best prototype I've ever seen of VR for Iron Man. And the team, just like Tony in the cave, their backs against the wall, and they just worked really, really hard on an incredible prototype that in 2 weeks really just communicated what Bill was talking about, that joy of flight, that sense that you are Iron Man, that suit, even if the world was just in gray box, right? We got that sense that players were playing as Tony Stark, even in this rough capacity. So when we took it down, we rented a minivan out of Seattle Airport, drove all the way down to LA with the VR equipment in the back seat. We pitched to Marvel. Thankfully, they loved it, and the rest is history.
That's right. That really shows that at Marvel, we love to give opportunities to talent across the board in all our divisions. We have a whole history of saying to someone, if you have the passion and the desire and the love for the characters and the talent, then we will give you that shot. And they took that shot and they hit a home run. And we said, you nailed that wish fulfillment. That number one is you put it on. Do I feel like I'm flying? Do I feel like I'm blasting? And from day one, they killed it, and we said, you got it, go.
Well, it was like you were Tony Stark, right? Someone tells you no, and you were like, I'm going to make this. No one's going to stop me.
Basically.
And it pans out beautifully. And talking about the flight, let's get into the flight mechanics of this game.
Sure.
You nailed it beautifully. How did you go about doing that?
Well, we got really lucky with one of our lead gameplay engineers, Troy Johnson. He just, from that first day, he was in the VR equipment trying to figure out how to make this feel natural. And that's like really the key here, is that just like with Audie's design of the suit, just like with a lot of things about Iron Man, and the things that I love about Iron Man is that it's not just fantasy. There's a lot of science behind the fiction, right? And the way that the flight mechanics work in our game is very physics-based. We're not making up a lot of stuff, and that is like the true secret sauce of the game, is that if we were to kind of simulate or imagine how flying would work in VR and have the player do a lot of stuff that didn't feel natural and wasn't physics-based, your brain would know. Subconsciously, you would actually start feeling not so good, right? But one of the great things about how our game feels so good when you play it is because it all is physics-based. And when Josh was here yesterday talking about it, he was right. He said, wow, the level of minutia that the controls have, he didn't expect with the PlayStation Move controllers. And it's true, like they're all based on proper laws of physics.
And speaking of the Impulse armor, we have some lithographs we're going to give out at the end of this panel, so stick around. We got a few of them left over to give out to some fans, because Audie did a fantastic job with that.
Yeah. Oh, and just to stress who Audie is and why it's such a big deal. So Audie was the artist who, back in the 90s, drew the Extremis storyline in the Iron Man comic book that Warren Ellis wrote. And really, he was the first one to draw the suit, and when you saw it, you said, oh, it's bold, it's dynamic, it works on the page, but I also understand that there's a man in there, and I understand how the armor works. And so he was the one, actually, that was drafted by the MCU to work on the first Iron Man movie. So he's the one that was a huge inspiration for the MCU. So to have an artist that we love, who has done the comics, who has worked in film, now to come full circle, we love working with him again, and then to help us design the armor, and then create this print, it is an awesome thing, and it just shows you how much the team cares about authenticity, about Marvel.